Tonight, somewhere in America, an engine starts. It roars. Heads turn. People smile without knowing why. That sound has been worshipped for over a century. But the real story starts somewhere no one expects. Not a factory, not a boardroom. A 10 by 15-foot wooden shed behind a house in Milwaukee. It was 1901. William S. Harley was 20 years old. He was sketching engine designs on scraps of paper, obsessed with a strange new idea, strapping a motor to a bicycle. He wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He worked at a metal shop and drew blueprints after hours. His friend Arthur Davidson helped him build the first prototype. It barely worked. The carburetor was hand-carved from a tomato can. Think about that. A tomato can. By 1903, the two of them, along with Arthur's brother Walter Davidson, had built 3 motorcycles, not 300. 3. They painted Harley-Davidson Motor Company on the door of that tiny shed, mostly because it sounded more official than it actually was. There was no company yet. There was barely a product. There was only a shed, a dream, and 3 young men who refused to quit. Walter took one of those first bikes on a 500-mile ride through Wisconsin. It performed so well that other riders started asking where they could buy one. That single ride became the company's first real advertisement. Word of mouth. No marketing budget. Just a machine that worked when almost nothing else like it did. Here's what almost nobody knows. The earliest Harley-Davidson motorcycles weren't fast, or beautiful, or legendary. They were fragile experiments built by hand, one at a time, in a space smaller than most modern garages. Every part was tested through failure. Every failure taught them something. You still hear the echo of that shed in every Harley built today, whether the rider knows it or not. The company grew, slowly, then quickly. By the 1920s, Harley-Davidson was one of the largest motorcycle manufacturers on Earth, competing directly with Indian Motorcycle in a rivalry that would define an era. But growth brings a different kind of danger. And decades later, that danger would almost end everything the founders built. Fast forward to 1969. The founders were gone. The company they built with their hands was sold to a massive conglomerate called AMF, American Machine and Foundry. AMF didn't build motorcycles. AMF built bowling equipment, and they saw Harley-Davidson as just another product line to squeeze for profit. Production numbers were pushed higher. Quality control was pushed lower. Workers on the assembly line later admitted some bikes left the factory with missing bolts. Oil leaks became so common that riders joked Harleys marked their territory like animals. Do you know how devastating that is for a brand built on trust? By the late 1970s, the damage was done. Japanese manufacturers, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki, were producing motorcycles that were cheaper, more reliable, and increasingly desired by American riders. Harley-Davidson's market share collapsed. The bikes that once symbolized freedom and rebellion were now symbols of something else entirely: outdated engineering and broken promises. In 1981, the company stood at the edge. AMF wanted out. They were ready to sell Harley-Davidson to whoever would take it off their hands, or shut it down completely. This was the moment, the real crisis, not a dramatic explosion. A quiet, bureaucratic decision that could have erased the entire legacy of that Milwaukee shed forever. 13 Harley-Davidson executives refused to let that happen. Led by Von Beals and Willie G. Davidson, the grandson of one of the original founders, they did something almost unheard of. They pooled their own money, took on enormous personal debt, and bought the company back from AMF in a leveraged buyout. 13 people, risking their own financial futures, betting everything on a company that most of the industry had already written off as finished. They rode motorcycles from the factory in York, Pennsylvania to the company headquarters in Milwaukee to announce the deal publicly. It wasn't just a business transaction. It was a declaration. We are not done. Not yet. But buying the company back was only step one. The bikes still had quality problems. The debt was crushing. Interest rates in the early 1980s were brutal, and Harley-Davidson was drowning in loan payments while competing against manufacturers with far more advanced production systems. Some analysts genuinely believed bankruptcy was inevitable within 2 years. So they rebuilt from the inside. They studied Japanese manufacturing techniques directly, adopting statistical process control and just-in-time inventory systems, methods almost no American manufacturer was using at the time. They didn't just want to survive. They wanted to fix the actual, physical problem. The bikes had to stop leaking oil. They had to stop breaking down. Pride wasn't enough anymore. Precision was required. At the same time, they petitioned the federal government for temporary tariff relief on imported heavyweight motorcycles, buying themselves breathing room while the quality improvements took hold. It worked. Slowly, reliability improved. Riders noticed. Loyalty, the kind that had been built since 1903, started coming back. By 1986, Harley-Davidson was stable enough to go public again on the New York Stock Exchange. The company that was nearly liquidated 5 years earlier was now standing on its own, debt shrinking, reputation recovering, culture stronger than ever. What if those 13 executives had decided the risk wasn't worth it? What if they had let AMF sell the name to the highest bidder and walked away? There would be no Harley-Davidson today. No roar outside your window. No leather jacket with that eagle stitched on the back. No museum in Milwaukee where people travel from around the world just to stand next to the same kind of machine William Harley first sketched on scraps of paper in 1901. Instead, the gamble paid off. And it paid off not because of luck, but because a small group of people looked at something built in a tiny shed and decided it was worth fighting for, the same way 3 young men once decided a hand-carved tomato can carburetor was worth building at all. That's the part people forget when they hear the engine now. They think of freedom. They think of the open road. They don't think about a wooden shed, or a leveraged buyout, or 13 people betting their futures on a company everyone else had given up on. But that struggle is baked into every bolt, every weld, every mile. So tonight, when you hear that engine roar past your window, you might not think twice about it, but maybe now you will, because that sound almost never